Okay, so why don't we do an example where we so how would you like I guess a classic example is to create or to build that multiplication table. Okay, how would you do that? We can build one, let's just say 10 by 10, right? From 1 to 10. And we could do that very easily. So let me just comment these out for now. And we'll build this multiplication table. Okay, so the rows and columns will be like, well, the first number will be 1 times 1, and then 2 times 2, and so on, right? So the first row will be 1 times 1, 1 times 2, 1 times all the way to 10. So you just get 1 to 10, and so on, right? And I know sometimes you think it's very simple, but when you code it, it may not be as simple as you may think, and vice versa. Okay, so if you think about the first row will be like 1, just basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 10. And the second will be like 2, and then 4, yep, 6, there you go, I'm already lost. 8, and then 10, and then all the way to 20, right? So you build that table. Okay, so we're going to create an array. It's a two-dimensional array. Just call it multiplication. That's too long. Just put mult. So it's going to be an int, new int of size, we'll say size 10, right? So it's a 10 by 10. So it's a 10 by 10. And then we're going to basically populate this table with those numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, and then so on, for each row. Right? So what should we do here? What's the first thing we need to do? The loop. Okay, so what, do a for loop? Kind of similar, right? So we'll say for loop. For the row, you call it row, sometimes called ij, very common, but I usually call it row because you can see it easily. And we don't, well, it is 0. It's still with row 0. Okay, but when we're not multiply, we want to say row plus 1, right? To get 1 times what the number is. And again, here, row will be less than the size of the mult table, so length. Then row plus plus. Okay. And then now the column will be the same thing. The column is less than mult. And since it's a square, you can say mult times length is fine. It's the same thing. So for that first row, we're going to assign. So we'll build the table first, and then we'll print it later, right? So let's build the table first. So we have the mult of row column. So that'll be the 0, 0. That first 0, 0 will be the result of row plus 1, right? So let's put this in paren here. So that means it'll be 1 times column plus 1. So since it's 0, I mean, we can't multiply. If you do get 0, it'll get just all zeros across the board. That's another way. If you want to start from 1 instead, that's fine too. If you start from 1, then when you assign the index, you want to say -1 here, right? So either way, you still have to do a subtraction or addition based on the row and the column. So we do that. We've built the table, and I think that should build the entire table. We'll see if it's correct or not. Now we can print the table out, and it follows the same thing what we did earlier. So we'll do int here, row 0, and then we'll do the column from 0 all the way to column is less than the length. And then just matter of it's just out, right? We'll print the multiple of row and column. And again, we'll put a space. And that may not, line up perfectly because as you get to the tens, numbers get like 2 digits. So that's okay. The print line here will be just print. If you want to make it perfect, you would say you get the size, the digit size. Right? If it's less than 10, then put 2 spaces. Otherwise, just put 1 space. Right? And then down here, we'll print extra line. So you can pad it with a number of space depending on the number of digits. Then we'll see if this is correct. So here's our multiplication table. Again, it's not evenly aligned. You could put spaces here, more spaces, because based on the number of digits, say when the row, the column, right? The column is, well, actually the number, if it's less than 10, then you put 2 spaces. Otherwise, you put just 1 space. Okay. Oh, use just a single column or row. Oh, well, I think because you have the print line here instead of print. Yeah. Yeah, that one. So yeah, so you put 1 column and 1 row, and then put the break, line break. Does it work? Got it? Okay. Cool. All right. So that's cool, right? So I mean, once you know how to access the arrays this way, then you can do a lot of things with it. I can ask you to, let's just say, multiply two matrices, right? So if it's a 3 by 3, you multiply the values and then get a new matrix, get a new table out of that. Okay, and it will follow kind of the same rule here. Let's see what I have here for you. Yeah, if you remember one of the assignments in, I think, chapter, was it 8 or 7, I don't remember, where he asked you to print the, like a bar chart of some team players, right? We did that. How do we did that? Do you remember how you did it?
We use like a calendar and a string.
Okay, come on.
And then you have like some sort of comparison. So every time the calendar increment, you add another asterisk to the string.
Yeah, right, okay. So we create like 5 variables for those 5 names of 5 players, and then we have the input string or input from the console to read a value for that score, and then we do the stars, right? Okay. So how would you create a table of like that players, let's say 5 players, and they participated in what? I should say, I don't know, let's say 5 games. And then each game they have their own score. You think of it like a bowling game, right? You have like 5 players, and each game you have a different score for the bowling. How would you devise that using this kind of algorithm? So you would store one array, just the names, right? Because you can't mix them in the array here, so you have to have 2 separate arrays, right? So one will be just the names of those players, and then the other one will be just their scores. Okay, and then so how would you do that? So I mean, instead of like printing stars, we could show something like this. So the first player, that's his score or her score, and you have 10 games, for example. And the second player here will be like Steve, and that's his score, right? And you want to show that to each player, and you also want to match that for each player also. And that to do that, you would need to do what we talked about last time about the parallel arrays. Okay, so you can build parallel arrays to match the 2 arrays. Okay, why don't we do something like that? I mean, just really quickly how to do that. With the multiplication table we already created, we'll just assume that these are their scores. Okay, these are their scores, and then you just basically create another array to store their names, and here we have 10 players, but we just change it to 5. Okay, so let's just say the length here will be just based on 5. Well, yeah, 10 game is okay. 10 game is fine, but it will be just 5 rows. So 5 players, right? The column, the row represents the 5 players, and then the 10 is the 10 games. So if I change it to 5, and if you run it, you'll see that the score is now, the multiplication is a 5, or it's 5 by 5. Oh, this is incorrect because let's change here. The column will be not 5, but will be 10. So it will be multiple of 0 length, and then multiple of 0 for the column. Okay, so we get 10 instead of 5 for the columns, and the row will be just 5. Okay, so just add the multiple of 0 and multiple of 0. And now that gives us this table, right? It's a 5 by 10. And then the first row will be like one of those players. Okay. Did I lost you? Okay. Okay. All right. So let's create another array here, maybe above here, and this will be a type string. And this will be the players. So we'll just assign their names here right away. So the first player, call it Adam. Second is Steve. And the next will be three of you guys. Alex, Gary, one R this time. Okay. So there goes our players. So again, the index here, 0 through 4, will match the number of rows here. Okay. Now to match the player's name to each of those rows, when we print these out, we'll just put it here very easily because it'll match the row numbers. And that's the thing about parallel arrays, right? You have to match all those index variables. In this case, we're talking about the rows. So when I say print this for that first row, for the first player, you want to print outside of this loop. So before you go to loop through each column, you want to print the name first. I mean, if that's, let's just say that's how I want to do it. It'll be just print, not print line, print. Then I'll get the name of that player, so it'll be the players of row. So that will be Adam, the first one. And we'll add a space. Well, maybe like a colon and then space. And those are his scores. The next row will be Steve, and then his scores, and so on. Okay, so if I run it, so we have their scores. Yeah, they're not really aligned, but that's besides the point. That's a formatting issue. But so I got their scores. Okay. So as long as you match the index, you should also match their names to their scores. And this can be applied to not just scores, but like grades, your courses, the semester you took, and the grade you got, and so on, right? Your IDs and so forth. So if you match them correctly, you get the right data, and it seems just as if like you have arrays of different types, data types. This would be much easier if you do it in PHP or JavaScript, but since Java is a strongly typed language, you can't mix and match those data types. So you have to do it manually this way. Of course, you can accomplish this through objects, right? When you build a class, that'll be easier to do too. But as soon as you have to use arrays, then this is the way to do it. And this is very similar to the assignment, if you have it done already, the horse racing assignment. So each row will be each horse, and then their scores will be based on the columns. Okay? Same concept here. Okay, we'll do one more, then we'll take a break. Now, also like up here, when I did it earlier, all these. So let's go back, well, let me just comment these out. So now I'm going to comment these out. Again, remember that array, a 2D array is an array of arrays. Right? So what that means is I can have like an array of prices. I could have something like 1250. Well, I mean, this would be like a double, not int. Sorry, double. 1250, 725, and $30.12. I have another one here. Maybe these are the cost, right? The initial cost for each of those products, whatever they are. The cost will be, let's just say, $5.50. For the second item would be $1.50, and then $12.75. So it's like the cost and price of sales would be sales. And then if you want to have the array of prices or sales or products, right? We'll call it products. Products, something like that. Then you can do assign using the variable here, prices and cost. Okay, so if it's easier to do this way, instead of manually punching those numbers right here in the list here, do it this way. It's just easy to manage. You can go back and fix those prices, those costs, and it is much more maintainable this way. I thought I just want to show you. I forgot to mention that, but and you can mix and match. You don't have to put variable here. I can have the third one here. It could be just maybe just one price, right? Now you have it on a really size array, which is completely fine. Okay. And you can have like if I have another array, double array, say some calories, for example. Just put some number here, 230, and then, I mean, it doesn't make sense. I just want to show that you can put in here, let's see, array of calories. Okay, it doesn't work here.